Today is July 26, 2019. I am Rosemary Hobbs, and I am interviewing
Tim Walker
at the Newkirk Public Library, Newkirk, Oklahoma, and I am a member of 4-H Club Go-Getters. This is for the Oklahoma Military Hall of Fame project. What motivated you to join the military?
Well, at the time, I was a fireman here at the Newkirk Fire Department, and Operation Desert Storm was going on, and a really kind of spur-of-the-moment thing. I became disgruntled at my job, and I had a friend of mine that says, "Hey, I'm joining the Coast Guard." I'm like, "What's the Coast Guard? I've never heard of that." And he said, "Well, it's part of the armed forces, but it's different." I'm like, "Sure, why not?" And I went home and told my wife at the time. I said, "I think I'm going to join the Coast Guard." And she said, "Well, what's the Coast Guard?" And kind of explained it to her, and she was like, "Oh, okay." And I went and took my physical down at MEPS, and I passed it. And then 2 days later, I wrote my resignation to the chief of the fire department, and 3 days later, I was on an airplane. So basically, spur-of-the-moment decision, and I knew that the country was going to war, and I was unhappy with my job, so I decided I'd do something else.
Okay, tell me a little bit about your time in basic training.
My time in basic training. If the people have ever seen Full Metal Jacket and Private Pile being the screw-up, that was kind of me. I got to dance with the surfboard with an ironing board and sing Surfin' Safari because I didn't iron my clothes very well. I had to carry a pair of boondockers, that's what we call our boots, around our neck because I didn't shine my shoes very well. I had to carry an iron like a purse because I didn't iron my clothes well. And that was the first part of boot camp. And I kind of started getting my stuff together, and by the end of, about the middle of boot camp, I was like, oh, because I've always been a free will, I kind of do what I want to do because my name's Tim Walker. But after that, I figured out, hey, you know what? This is just a mind game that they're playing with you. If you go along to get along. And then I figured out it's just kind of like college with exercise mixed up with it. So, and I graduated kind of towards the middle. You would have thought I'd been at the end, but as bad as I was at the beginning, went about the middle of my class, and I got a pretty good choice of duty stations.
What was your primary job after training?
The Coast Guard's kind of different than the other militaries. Your first 2 years you're what's called a non-rate, and it's E1, E2, and E3. So you don't really have if you want to go into engineering, they'll put you in an engineering part, which is, you know, a boat mechanic or engine mechanic, small engine mechanic, damage controlman, which is a welder, slant bar. That's what I ended up becoming. Well, damage controlman is a welder, slant bar carpenter, slant bar small engine mechanic, slant bar just basically jack of all trades. Oh, fireman too, yeah, because you're the fireman on the ship being damage control. But at my first duty station, we did a lot of law enforcement. I was down in the Florida Keys, so we did a lot of drug interdiction and migrant enforcement. We picked up a whole lot of Cubans that were coming over on rafts, and I got lots and lots of drug busts, which was fun.
Where were you? Where were you deployed? If so, where and for what?
Beautiful Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. My second duty station was on the Coast Guard cutter Dependable, which is stationed out of Galveston, Texas. But that was during the 1994 Haitian boat lift, and so we spent basically 8 months out of Guantanamo Bay picking up Haitians, taking them either back to Haiti or taking them to Kingston, Jamaica, or taking them back to Guantanamo Bay. So we spent, that was my deployment. It was beautiful Guantanamo Bay.
What was the most demanding part about your deployment?
Actually seeing the plight, excuse me, the plight of the Cubans and the Haitians. I mean, it takes a horrible living conditions that you're in to take your 6-month-old baby, or you being pregnant. And we did deliver 2 babies on my ship, though, and I do believe that they became American citizens because our ship is American soil. But anyways, it's got to be deplorable where you live to load up everything you've got and get on an inner tube. You got 2 or 3 people on an inner tube, or 2 or 3 inner tubes that are put together with plywood on top of it, and we're going to get this piece of wood and we're going to row from Cuba to the Florida Keys, or we're going to get, I saw a 40-foot sailboat with over 200 people on it. So that's a boat basically as long as what this room is, and not even close to half as wide, with that many people on it. So it's got to be really, really bad. And a lot of them, they don't make it. I mean, we picked up a ton of dead bodies because they didn't make it. And it's everything from, you know, little babies all the way to adults.
What rank are you most proud to have earned?
Well,
and why?
And why? I made the list for E5. I made the list for 2nd class petty officer, but I didn't make it. But I was a 3rd class petty officer, and I was actually really surprised that I even made it that far, because, like I said, I was even when I got on the ship, I was still. My name's Tim Walker, and I'm going to do what I want to anyway. So I really didn't get in trouble, but I fit in really good into engineering because that's the way all engineering was. But yeah, I didn't quite make E5, but I was just right there. I was on the list. Then I got out.
Which medals or citations are you most honored to have received, and why?
Well, Good Conduct Medal for one, because I was the way I was. And the other is, I got the Secretary of Transportation's Meritorious Unit Commendation, because in the, if I'm trying to remember how it read, because I don't even know where it's at. I lost all my medals and my ribbons. But in the month of July and June of 1994, the task force that we were in, which was about 15 ships altogether, we saved over, I think it was right at 38,000 Haitians is what we rescued in those 2 months.
Tell me about some of the special people you met.
There is a lot of inappropriate things that I can't tell you about special people that we met, or I met. But everybody that I learned a lot about different cultures, because and all of the military is the same way, and I didn't realize this. I grew up in Ark City. I moved to Newkirk when I was 18, and I led a fairly sheltered life. And you know, you get a prejudgment of the way that people are and different cultures are, and it's really not. It just opens up your eyes going out someplace. But biggest redneck, and coming from Newkirk, America, the biggest redneck I've ever met, I can't remember Buck's last name, but he was just, I went out there and there was this cat, and we call them skinny boogers back where I come from. But yeah, there's Buck Swaffer, that was his name, and there was Biscuit. His name was Seebeck was his last name, but we called him Seabiscuit, and then it just turned into Biscuit. And there's just so many guys that were just. I had so many good friends and so many good times. I really did.
What was the best and worst military food you were served, and why?
One of the best things about being on a ship is a thing called mid-rats. Because if you work the midnight to 4 o'clock in the morning watch, you miss breakfast because you're in bed from when you get off watch at 4 o'clock in the morning and they come and get you up at 10. So they give you a thing called mid-rats. And I was introduced to chicken wings when I was in the Coast Guard. And oh my Lord, I never tasted anything so good. Chicken wings. That's the best thing. And there was, and also being deployed on a ship, the food was better on the ship than it was when I was on a land-based station. And when I was down in the Florida Keys, we had a lot of southern guys down there, and I got introduced to grits. And it's not like instant grits that you put the butter on and make it taste really good. These were like square, I don't know what they were. It was like lard, like a big thing of lard. And that we would have those for breakfast sometime, and I'm just like, why? Why would you eat this? It's you know, it's worse than pork and beans. That little piece of pork that's in a thing of pork and beans, yeah, it's worse than eating that.
Tell me a funny story you experienced that could only happen in the military.
Again, there are so many funny things that happened to us and things that we did that okay, I think this one's okay. The sewer system on the ship went down. And so from like 8 o'clock at night until 8 o'clock in the morning, it was everybody had eaten breakfast. They still hadn't gotten it fixed. And well, like I was telling you about, I hope I don't have to go anywhere. You know, we picked up Haitians, and we had big square metal toilets that were open, but we put boxes around when we had the Haitians so they could go to the bathroom when they were on the ship. Well, being damage controlman, I was in charge of that, and I was also in charge of the fire main station. Well, I'd been up all night, and I had to go like you would not believe. So I went out on the fantail, and I got these metal poopers out, and I hooked them up, and then I called up to the bridge and told them that I was going to be testing a fire station on one of the fire stations is where the fire hoses come off there on the side of the ship. So I hooked the fire hose up to it, and I went and got a newspaper, and I got me a cigar, and I sat down on the fantail of the ship with that toilet set up in front of God and everybody, and I just sat there and did my business while reading the newspaper. And yeah, after that though, everybody else was like, I don't know why we didn't think about that. So there was standing room only to go to the bathroom on that after I got it hooked up. Can I just tell that story on this, Karen?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a great story.
Okay.
Very inventive, actually.
How does your military experience affect your life today?
I got to turn where I can still hear it, but it won't interfere. I wouldn't be the person that I am today if I wouldn't have joined the military. When I went in, I was a very immature, I wouldn't say selfish, but I was a very immature, self-centered person. And I came out with, you know, in a very narrow view of the way that the world is. And when I came out, my blinders had come off, and I think that I am seeing the things that I did and doing the things that I did, it opened up my heart and made me more of a caring person. So I think it made me a better person.
Have you kept in contact with anyone you've served with?
Facebook is a wonderful thing. I've come across quite a few guys that I served with. There's not a lot of them on there, but yeah, I haven't been able to talk to any of them. No, I'm lying to you, because one of my best friends in high school, the one that told me that he was, hey, I'm joining the Coast Guard. You want to join the Coast Guard? he blew his knee out in boot camp, and he moved back to Oklahoma. And he was a cop in Blackwell forever, and he just retired. So yes, I do keep in touch with Delton, Terry Van Oy's son-in-law.
Do you have any more stories?
Yeah, I do. A lot of them, like I said, I can't tell because it's not. Yeah, but we were at quarters, and what quarters is the commanding officer calls all the ship's company together. So we're standing on the flight deck, and this is in Galveston Harbor. And again, engineers being who we are, I got a couple of them that I'll tell you about us being engineers. But deck division stood here. Operations was here, and then engineers was in the back. Yeah, deck, engineer, or operations, and then the XO and the captain's back here, or up at the front, there by the hangar. So we're standing in the back, being engineers, because that's what we do. And the XO's up there talking, and I look down the waterway, and I'm like, hey, there's a water spout. And I go, hey, Biscuit, there's a water spout. So we're all standing here, and it goes down. Hey, Duck, there's a water spout. Hey, Bordner, there's a water spout. So the XO's like, engineering, do you have anything you want to add to my speech? XO, there's a water spout coming right at us. And so everything broke loose because we had to secure everything, because a water spout's like an F1 tornado. But I just found it humorous that we're standing out here in the middle of the open. Here comes a water spout right at us. So, and then we had a new chief that came on the boat. And engineering, we're down there, we're working on engines, we're getting oily, we're getting nasty, we're getting ucky. So we brought 2 uniforms maybe with us, and the rest we all wore coveralls. And we got a new chief on the boat, and he decided that we couldn't eat on the mess deck unless we had on a uniform. Well, at lunchtime, you go on watch at noon. So, and they start serving at 10 to noon. So you don't have time to put on a uniform and then go eat and then go back down to our berthing area, change into coveralls to get back down into the engine room. So, for some silly reason, we all decided that if we shaved our heads into mohawks in protest, so everybody in the engineering section, we all shaved our heads into mohawks. Now, I didn't have this beautiful bald head that I do now. I had a great, it was short, just barely on military bearing. So for me to do that, that was pretty, and most everybody else on the ship was the same way. Now, yeah, Jay Gorzel, he didn't shave his head because we call him Jay Suave because he was the ladies' man, but he had pretty hair. But yeah, everybody had nicknames, in case you can't tell. So, but they let us come and eat. As long as our coveralls were clean after that, they let us come eat on the mess deck. But,
oh, well, that's it.
that's it.
Yeah.
Okay, what was your nickname?
DC3. That's just, they called me DC3 because I was damage controlman 3rd class. Kind of like over there now, they just call me AC at the fire department. So, because assistant chief. So I've never had a cool nickname. Mine are just abbreviations.